Hello and welcome to the Dirt and the Divine. I'm Krisha Young, your host, executive growth strategist, author, and advocate for living a fully aligned, unapologetic life. This podcast is built on the philosophy that every beautiful life has its roots in both the messy and the magnificent. Here we share raw, real stories from incredible individuals who faced life's toughest challenges head on, dug deep into their souls, and took radical personal responsibility for their lives. They didn't run or hide from their struggles. They explored their emotional landscapes, owned their experiences, and emerged authentically, living in joy and alignment. Through these conversations, my hope is to inspire you to think, wow, if they went through all that and found happiness, so can I. This space is about embracing the journey, the dirt, and the divine, because together they shape a life worth living for real. Please note that this podcast is for general discussion only and is not suitable for therapy, legal, or professional advice. Let's get started. I am so excited for today's guest. This is a very dear friend of mine that I've known for a really, really, really long time, mostly online, although we did meet once I think only at a conference down in Los Angeles. This is Barry Selby. Barry is a transformational guide and relationship expert who helps mature single women and men heal emotional wounds, break free from destructive patterns, and reclaim self-trust and authentic worth. With expertise in NLP, Gestalt, spiritual psychology, and masculine feminine dynamics, Barry equips clients with tools to rebuild confidence, set boundaries, and create life-changing relationships. He's known for his deep empathy. I 100p agree with that, and practical wisdom. Barry's work fosters lasting transformation in love and life, empowering individuals to navigate relationships with clarity and make aligned, unapologetic choices. Welcome, Barry.
Thanks for having me. I love that. Love that that moment. So thank you.
What is that? Say that again.
When you anchor the empathy moment in my or compassion in my bio. So appreciate that feedback.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You are such a lovely, lovely human. I'm so fortunate to know you. And we have been growing alongside each other for a really long time,
Indeed.
like a
Yeah.
really long time. And I've loved watching your business bloom. And, you've got a book and a quiz, and we'll talk about all of that.
Yes.
Um, and, you really want to share the message of what it means to have a healthy relationship. And today, what we're going to talk about is how healthy relationships actually begin with the relationship with yourself, right?
Yes. Indeed.
Yeah. And we both know that very well personally. Um, so let's just dive right in here. I'm going to ask you a question and then we'll just like go from there.
Sounds
Um,
good.
why is self-love such a crucial foundation for healthy relationships? And how does loving ourselves impact the way we show up for others? I love this question.
How much time do we have?
I know, right?
It's
Yeah.
funny because I've talked about self-love a lot in my work for quite a while now, and I've noticed in a lot of places self-love is used almost like a panacea. It's like a simple term, like, "Oh, self-love, it's fine." It's very airy-fairy. But the reality for me is self-love is much more than just, "Oh, I put my hand on my heart and I love myself," which I actually talked about that way years ago, but now I know differently. For me, what that means really is have a loving relationship with ourselves, which many of us don't. To be honest, I didn't for a long time. And
Yeah.
what it meant was in relationships, I was always looking for love outside myself first, thinking that when they love me enough, I'll feel loved. Versus what I now know to be true is loving myself first means that I can be a better partner to somebody else who also loves me and I can love them. And so the reason why it's such a foundational part is that so many of us are driven by the need to find love outside, which like I was like that for many people, like other people too. And so we don't feel loving towards ourselves unless our partner loves us first. And that's a trap we fall into so many times because ultimately that means when we're not in a relationship, we don't feel loved. which is ridiculous because we are a loving being. So why not love ourselves?
Yeah, I agree with this so much, and I have so much to say around that too.
Mm.
And like one of the things that when I started to come online, meaning like when I started to really understand this concept for myself, um, because a lot of this stuff, like we hear it and then we're like, yeah, 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 we get it, but like, do we really get it? You
Yeah,
know? And so when I say like come online, what I mean is like, oh, wait a minute, holy crap, like there's more here. It's not just like lip service. Like there's actually stuff that I need to really do in order to be embodied and truly get what we're talking about here. Um, but it was I think around like when I was starting to realize that, well, I was starting to fall in love with life, and
hmm,
I was starting to just have that falling in love or in love feeling, and it had nothing to do with another human,
there you go. Yeah,
you know. And then all of those like movies, TV shows, whatever, where people were collapsing as a result of a relationship ending, right? I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, how can that happen? How can you completely collapse in the absence of a human or in a relationship or whatever? Oh, it's because you're putting all of that out on that person,
exactly.
and that's your source of love rather than the source of love being self-love.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's so
codependency.
easier
Absolutely.
said than done, but
Right. But that's the codependent trap we fall into. I mean, one of my favorite quotes I've used for years because people used to think it's so romantic is from Jerry Maguire when he says, "You complete me." It's
right.
like, no, you're not incomplete. You can't be completed by somebody else. That's the fallacy. And
Yeah.
that's what you said is so true is that we do have this tendency, and again, I did this a lot myself when I was younger, where when a relationship ended, there'd be nothing left because my source of love left me. Well, again, that's the misperception that we don't have love ourselves. And one of my teachers said once about how you can only be loved to the level that you love yourself, which I never believed that was true. But now I start to see the resonance in that truth. Not saying that it's only to that level, but the truth is we can only really be let lover in to the amount of space we have inside to be loving ourselves. And that is true. There's Barbara Angelis, I remember she spoke, this is going back a few years, talking, what a few years now, talking, did a lecture about loving relationships. She said, and she's an author and teacher about love and relationships herself. And she said that basically, if you imagine that when you go through heartbreak, imagine like you have this lake of water that basically has ice forming on top every time you have heartbreak. It's like the ice is crystallizing because you've broken your heart so many times, and then you got to meet somebody else and you fall in love again. Well, the thing is, the more you do that, the more times you have heartbreak, the more ice covers up the ocean, and the ocean is the loving you can give out, or I should say, the lake rather is the water is what you can give out as love. The more you cover it up, the less you can get love out to the other person. So the more you go through heartbreak, a new relationship, heartbreak, new relationship without healing yourself, the less love is available to either give or receive. And so relationships, unfortunately, don't fill you up anymore because you're not free to love because you've basically become encased in this heartbreak experience time and time again.
Yeah. And this is where bitterness,
Yep.
resentment,
Oh, yeah.
like, there's no good women, there's no good men, and it's like, why would I go back out there and date again when all that happens is like, I'm just gonna get hurt, and all men are this and all women are that or whatever. Um, when that's not true.
Not true at all.
It's
Yeah.
not true. Like it's true. Well, there's like, what's that game? Two truths and a lie. It's kind of like it's true and it's a lie. So I have this concept that I came up with called the lie that feels like the truth.
Mm,
And this is in the pattern work. Like we both do pattern work with
yeah.
people, right? Like we work on the patterns that keep people stuck,
Right.
and in just whatever your way and my way or whatnot.
Hmm.
And the pattern is the lie that feels true.
Right.
So it's like all men are jerks could feel very true because all men have been jerks, or
Their
all
experience. Yeah.
women are, or whatever, right? All women are bitches. could feel true if all women have been bitches. But where does this originate from? Where does this actually come from? And is it a childhood wound? Is it something that you carried through from, like, when you were little and then like just never healed? And then like now you're getting all these mirrors coming up, right, in every relationship in different sort of like facets.
Yep.
And now you have these icebergs or this like sheet of ice on top of you, and you just can't see the actual truth because all you're seeing are all these lies that you've now convinced yourself are true, right?
Right.
So
So,
how does somebody then start to break the ice?
hmm. I know the term has a different connotation in this context. Um,
Yeah,
the,
right.
the reality is, and this is core of my work. I always talk about self-awareness being key. Is that we've got to start being aware of what's been going on, what we've been doing in our past relationships, what we've done to this point, because it may have been that we chose a partner that was the same type of person every single time. So we have this judgment that all of that type person would be that type. It's like all women are whatever they are, all men are what they are, because that's the ones we chose. The reason we chose those, though, goes back to our childhood. Because what happens, and this is something that a lot of people don't want to deal with, but it's the reality. Bruce Lipton has a book out called The Book Biology of Belief. And he talks about how we get imprinted when we're very young, because when we're born, we don't have encyclopedias of knowledge inside of us. We're empty vessels to take on everything around us. As babies, we're totally like sucking in the life around us to figure out how life works. We learn by, well, we literally learn at the feet of our parents, basically. We are sponges, basically taking in the world around us and thinking that's the way life is. And it's not until we're about 6 or 7 years old where our conscious mind, the frontal cortex, comes online, so to speak, and becomes the decision maker, saying this is what we believe, or this is what we don't believe. Up to that point, we believe everything we're shown. And good or bad, how our parents relate to each other is the model we take on about relationships and also about money, about communication, about respect, about how men and women treat each other, all that stuff we take in from our parents who are probably oblivious that we're learning from them because they don't know. And so we take on this knowledge inside without any filter. And then when our conscious mind comes online, it's like we become the guardian of the warehouse that is full of all the information we took on and it's still running in our unconscious mind. So when we become adults and when we're dating, we're doing other things in life, we are running autopilot on so many things we learn at a very young age. And until we become aware of them, we can't change them because they're unconscious. And so the challenge is when we go through a breakup and we have that heartbreak and we're not sure what to do, is go, okay, has this happened? Has this sort of pattern happened before? Because usually the answer is yes. I went through cyclic relationships where the same thing happened 3 or 4 times in a row, different partners. So I knew it wasn't them, it was me because I was the common denominator. And that's the point of shift into awareness going, okay, if that's me, then what do I believe about that? So I can then change that belief and then change where I go from that point forward.
Yeah. And the there's some things to like look at with that here too, because I went through a lot of shame spirals around that. Like, well, it's obviously me. I'm the common denominator here. So like I'm the one who's flawed, I'm the one who's broken. And then it became this like self-flagellation, right?
That's an
And
option, not required, but it's an option.
it's not required, right? But I do think that in this work, sometimes a little humbleness and a little like eek is required to sort of like spark the conversation within.
Hmm.
And then, but like don't stay there because that's like shame producing
Right,
and not healthy, right? And then the flip side of that is to be like, not my fault, it's all them and got nothing to do with me and them, right? Okay.
right,
So
yeah.
what's the happy medium here? Oh my gosh, common denominator, me, yikes, awareness. What are the things? What's the thing that keeps, or what's the type of person, or what's the same fight, or what's the similar scenario, or whatever. And then I do believe that it is now our personal responsibility to
Mm.
then go into hiring a coach, hiring therapists, reading the books, like doing the uncomfortable work to really take a look at what are these stories? What are these childhood wounds? What are these things that are in the way? And then finding like our own personal path on unraveling that and healing it. And I do believe strongly that you need to have a guide to do this with,
Yeah.
which is your work in the world.
Hmm.
And you work with people directly, right? Like
Yeah.
privately, one-on-one, to help them with unraveling some of these stories.
Yeah.
Um, so tell us a little bit about how you do that. Like, you let's say I was one of your clients and I come to you and I'm just like, I keep attracting the same kind of guy and I can't find a decent man out there and I don't know what's going on. Like, how would you start, or what would you work with me on?
Well, it depends on how we approach it. One approach simply first of all is look at what is it you're looking for, really, honestly, because the truth is you may be just not even clear what you're looking for in the first place. So you're just getting what shows up. That's the first part.
Yeah.
Second part, and this is where the deep question comes up, is if this happened before, if you've had 3 or 4 relationships or more with the same sort of man showed up in your life, the same sort of partner, does that remind you of anything when you were younger? Maybe it was your father. Maybe it was an older sibling. Maybe it was a teacher at school, even. It could be something that happened when you were younger that you took on going, that's the way a man should be. And then you repeated that as an adult, normally because that's what you thought was the ideal. Now, the thing is, the ideal we think we have, when we look at it really clinically versus emotionally, we can see, oh, hang a second, that's nothing like what I really want. And the
Mm.
other part then becomes, okay, so then if that's what it is, and of course we do the work to disconnect that wiring and shift the belief system so you now have a different viewpoint of what you want to have, and then start making what do you really want to have, and then you start putting the qualities of what you really truly want to desire. The challenge also, by the way, oftentimes when you look at relationships, we have this tendency, instead of looking at where we want to go, we look at what we don't want to go anymore. So
Mhm.
we say last breakup, I don't want to be with a partner who does this, 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 and this. The problem is when we say we don't want something, it's the same as saying we want something, because the unconscious mind doesn't hear don't. So when we say, I don't want somebody who cheats, well, the thing is, what's conscious in the mind is somebody who cheats. So you got to watch what your language and how you frame what you want, and be clear about what you do want versus I don't want that, so I'm going to focus on not wanting that, you know?
Exactly. And I do think though that it's a helpful exercise to do that, especially for people who aren't quite used to, like, a lot of the women that I work with, or people, not just women, don't always know exactly what they want, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because nobody's ever asked them. So it's like, what do you want?
Yeah.
I don't I don't know. You mean I'm allowed to ask for what I want? You know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation. But I find that going through what you don't want, right? Like doing 2 columns, right? Like
Yes,
writing out what you don't
exactly.
want and then creating, well,
Yeah.
what do you want instead, right? Instead of, so what you're saying is just don't get stuck in the don't want, right? So I don't want somebody to cheat on me. Okay. I really enjoy having a partner who is loyal, and committed, deeply committed to me and our union.
Yeah. There you go.
Something
That's a
like
good
that.
start. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I was going to share about this, but I think I will, because you were aware of some of this, and maybe by sharing, it can help spark a little bit more conversation here. But this past year, I had a lot of realizations in terms of relationship and union. Um, for the first time in my life, I had found a partner who triggered me like AF, and me him too. And it was the first relationship that I'd ever had that was that sort of like confronting,
Mhm.
you know? And I'd been married before, I'd been in relationships before. I'm not a spring chicken. um, you know, and I'd never been sort of like confronted in this way, and I think it might have, what tipped it over the edge for me, maybe with this particular person, was the amount of love that I had for him,
Yeah.
and it was deeper and more genuine than I'd ever experienced before in my entire life. Like I was just like, holy moly, in love with this man. And I think that, like, I'd done so much work in the decade leading up to meeting this person, that I was like, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I know what my attachment style is. I know this. I know that about myself. I'm
Yeah.
good. And then I meet this person and then I'm like, what is happening here? Right.
Right.
Um, and then when we split up in July, um, I really went deep into looking at what happened here. What exactly happened here? How did I get into this scenario with this person with all of this awareness and all of this work that I've done on myself? And plus, I'm a professional in this realm and I help other people with this. Like, what
Mhm.
happened? And then I realized that there were two core wounds of mine that hadn't been looked at, that I was making sort of him responsible for.
Yeah.
And one of them was what I call like my black hole, and because it could never be filled. And this brings us back to the very beginning. It's like, until you fill your own cup, fill your own love, fill your own self, the other person can never ever ever fill it. And so I had my own like little black hole, not big black hole, that had been there. And it and the thing that I think I want to emphasize here is that when I started to look at this, it wasn't just in my relationship with him, it was in my relationship with everybody that got close to me.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yep.
so this black hole was like, inclusivity, you must invite me, why are you not including me? And I was putting so much pressure on him for those things, that like in an early time in the relationship. And when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, wow, I'm like not giving myself that. And I was
Right.
making him responsible for that part of me. And so when we split up, I was like, holy crap, I need to like fill that for myself. I need to like realize that nobody is going to fill that for me. I need to fill that hole for
Yeah.
myself. And there was shadow and light to that, because the other side of that was recognizing, and the book Deeper Dating really helped me with this one. That's an excellent book. Was like, that hole is also the core most beautiful part of us. And that core most beautiful part was that I deeply desire connection, and I need it. And my whole life I'd been pushed away, told I was too clingy, I was too much.
Yeah.
And so that turned into a black hole, right? Of shame. And then when I started to realize, no, actually, that is the most beautiful part of me. And
Mhm.
anybody is lucky to be in my life, because I do honor and revere and cherish relationships so much that if you're in with me, you're in with me. And then if you're not, that's okay too. And so that whole experience allowed me to sort of like unravel my anxious attachment at a way deeper level,
Yeah.
and like view myself as an asset, and view this whole black hole as an asset. And then also look at the places and the people that I was like making them responsible for filling that gap, you know.
Mhm.
And it was really that work that just like unraveled like all of that. Thank you, to that scenario to help with that. But so this, I'm mentioning this because um there's two prongs to this. And one is the healing work that we do on our own, with a therapist or with a coach or a guide or books or whatever, right? And then there's the healing work that can be done within or through a relationship too, right? So that like we can't, there's no sort of like perfect time for us to be in a relationship. Like we can be stuck in a self-growth cycle forever and ever and ever and be like, well, I'm not ready and I'm not ready and I'm not ready and I'm not ready. But then it's like, how you can't heal in a vacuum, right? And so for me, it was like I thought I had it all dialed, and then I was like, whoa, I did not. And that experience gave me the material that I needed to continue healing those patterns that I would have never seen had I been single
Mhm.
or stayed single. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
that's the thing. Relationship is a big gift in that sense. And people talk about when I meet my soulmate and have a conscious relationship, that will be fine. It's like, no, that's the thing. You have a conscious relationship with your soulmate, that's when they're going to give you the gift of showing you everything you haven't healed yet. Not
yeah.
out of not out of vindictiveness, but out of
Mhm,
compassion and care. And
mhm.
so the relationship can ultimately be a thriving playground to play in if you're both doing the work. But
Yeah,
sometimes it's too much work for the relationship to thrive too. So it can work either way. But yes, being single is a great time to do the work, but it's almost like until you get out on the freeway in your car, you don't know if it's still going to run okay. So the same thing in a
right.
relationship. You've still got to be in a relationship to verify you've healed stuff. And if you have healed stuff, great. But as you're saying, when you heal things, there's more work to do because part of the reason being on the planet, as Richard Bach says, if you wonder what if your mission on Earth is finished, if you're still here, it isn't. It's like relationships. If you're still in if you're still on the planet doing stuff, you've got room to grow no matter what you do, whether you're in a relationship or not. So being in a relationship and thinking you're not going to have an issue is false premise. So definitely look at relationships as a growth opportunity as well as when you're being single.
And you said something really important there about being in a growth relationship with somebody else who's growing.
Yes.
And that's really important because I do realize that the majority of my past relationships, the other person just wasn't eager or willing to grow.
Yeah.
Whereas this one with this particular human, he has decided to grow. And so we're regrowing together again and just exploring what that regrowth could potentially look like. Um, and I'm happy that he's on that journey, and that he's decided he's the one of all the ones that had decided to dig into that growth. And so that has now created a new paradigm for us to be able to like grow together.
Yeah.
Um, so like what what constitutes a growth partner then in a relationship? Like if somebody who's listening or watching right now is like, I'm so frustrated with my partner and they're just not listening to me or whatever, like what do we do with that? Like do we just leave them? Like how do we
The,
cultivate a growth
the
relationship?
challenge is that most people are scared to tell their partner the truth.
Mm,
So they live in this place where they're going to make it nice and okay. They only tell their partner the truth when they're out the door.
mm,
So there's not a chance to be honest in the growing opportunity. The thing about relationships, and yes, this is a growing opportunity in relationship is possible, is first of all, are you willing to tell your partner the truth? Actually, back it up. Are you willing to tell yourself the truth?
mhm.
And then are you willing to tell your partner the truth? Because a lot of times we get upset, not because our partner's doing something, but because we're judging our partner for something. So their partner may be doing nothing at all, but we're starting to build this whole bunch of resentment because they didn't take out the trash or something, and we build this whole scenario of all the things they're doing wrong because of one instance, because we have a bunch of stuff inside we haven't resolved yet. So the gift they've given us, this chance to work on our own stuff. The challenge is not to throw back at them as a weapon, which people do in relationship. So a growth relationship requires both partners to be responsible for their own emotional experience and their own emotional maturity. And also, and this is one of the things I look at so simply, is like when you talk to your partner, speak from ownership language. We have a tendency to say, well, when you do this and you do this and I get upset, you make me upset, all this sort of stuff. It's like, no. The reality is, if they do something, I might choose to get upset about what they did. But the reality is, I have dominion over my upset, not them. That's taking your power back for a start. But secondly, and this is the challenge we fall into, is we don't have healthy like boundaries with each other, healthy respect, saying this is my stuff I need to work on. I appreciate you being there. If you hold space for me, I'll work on my stuff. Versus you need to fix me or I need to fix you. Because that's the other trap in a relationship. We think we're going to find a fixer upper and make them better, which is not a good choice for a relationship partner.
Yeah, not at all. And a lot of women do that. A lot of women do that.
Yeah,
Oh, it is that
unfortunately.
has that been your experience too? Is the women fixer?
Well, most of my clients are women. I've got male clients too, but most of the women who come see me tend to come from the place where like they try to make their partner better, or
Mhm.
they wanted to make him, they wanted to groom that guy to be the best they could be. And it's like, and then I know one partner in particular, one relationship rather, she said basically like, she made him so good that he left her because,
Yeah.
which happens too. So no, ideally you want to do your own work and have your partner do their own work together. So the relationship becomes the crucible and the gift in which the both of you can thrive.
Yeah. I know that going back to this relationship that I was just talking about, that was also a pattern of mine, was being the fixer, you
Hmm.
know. And for me, that pattern was directly tied to my mother. And my mom, she's passed away now, but she was an alcoholic, and she was a closet alcoholic too at that. And so, there was like mom and then drunk mom, and it was like bam, and then drunk mom had all these things that she would do, and then like little Krisha would be like, mom, why are you doing this? Why are you drinking? Why are you hurting me that way, right? And so that was my little girl. And then so when I found myself in these relationships with men that were maybe like not treating me well, to be honest, I'd be like, why are you doing that? Please stop doing that. Let's do this better. And like, please, please, please let me fix you. Let me, and I would fawn a lot, and I would like turn the dial down on my worthiness. I would turn the dial down on my asks. I would turn the dial down on myself and dim myself so
Yeah.
much that I just wouldn't be a bother, one. But then two, I'd be like, there sort of like, it's okay, like I would have so much forgiveness, and it's like, it's okay that you just did this super awful fucking shitty thing. I forgive you because I understand where you're coming from with that. And oof, no.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, like, fuck no.
Yeah. You don't want to be an enabler of that sort of behavior. Absolutely not.
No.
No, again, it's the boundaries and respect. Yes, do your own work,
Mhm.
but also don't make excuses for each other
Yeah.
or for yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lesson I'm sure you learned pretty well.
Mm. Oh my gosh, yeah. And the amount of worthiness that came out of that whole scenario, and recognizing these patterns, and I was just kind of like, whoa, nope. And when I stepped away and then like created this worthiness barrier within myself, and just being like, okay, now I've taken personal responsibility for how I was showing up in that, what I was tolerating, what I was allowing, and what I will never ever 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 allow or tolerate ever again. It's just like, it's just a no. So it just like, it slips off like Teflon now, it's not even something that I have to like brace for or anything like that. And a lot of that just came from like really getting to know these patterns that I mentioned, and just loving myself, like
Yeah.
pouring so much love into myself. And just like recognizing the things that I needed and wanted in relationship that I hadn't um what's the word I'm looking for? Like I hadn't come online yet, that those were requirements for what it was that I wanted and needed
Yeah.
in union. And then when I finally started to like go, oh, wait a minute, no, these are non-negotiables for me now, then it became like this thing that was just embodied, and it's like, you either have it or you don't, and it's fine. And healing that attachment, like, it's okay if you go,
Yeah.
you know in fact, it's better if you do.
Well, that's the other part too. And we're speaking earlier about growth relationships, is that if you grow and your partner doesn't, there's definitely a point where you say, you know what, I can't stay around because I need to grow beyond. In my book, I talk about the rubber band experience in relationships, and it's one of those key things that we have this thing where we think when we grow that partner's going to change with us automatically, or we think we'll give up what we're doing to go back to where they are. But the truth is, if you grow and your partner doesn't, the rubber band gets stretched so far it nearly breaks, and the relationship is not going to last. So doing the work can mean, I'm sorry to say it this way, the sacrifice of your relationship if your partner is not growing with you. So having, like you said, with your latest partner, that he's doing his own work too, which is great. May not be at the same speed, may not be the
Mhm,
same areas, but the
mhm.
fact that there's both partners are aware they can grow and then are doing steps to actually do the growth to transform their own experience, their own history, their own lives. That's very positive towards having a healthy relationship, even if it's just a friendship. There are
Yeah.
friendships I've had over the years just in social connections that have fallen away because they haven't changed or haven't grown. And I've been growing in my own way through my own work and studies because I'm a student still as well as being a teacher. And so the relationships can sustain themselves with us are also elevating us at the same time. We grow together.
And that brings up such a great point, that about like changing somebody and defining that, right? So there's changing somebody's personality, right? Like that's unhealthy. And then there's seeing that someone has behaviors or patterns that are based in childhood wounds that should that person decide to look at that wounding, it would shift a lot within them, right? Like let's look at attachment theory for a minute, okay?
Mhm.
In this instance, right? Okay. So changing somebody. Okay. So I love like dance music. I love going out dancing. I love drum and bass. I love all of that. I love being expressed. I love being like, woo! um try to change that in me. Good luck.
Right.
Good luck. So if you're dating me and you're like, I don't like how much you go dancing. I don't like that you go, I don't like that you, I don't like that you listen to your music so loud. I'd be like, bye. Right. Because that's trying to change me. That's something that brings me joy. And like, why would I do that? Right. Or likewise, let's say you loved playing football, and you were out playing sports all the time and it was innocent and you loved it. And I'd be like, why are you always playing football? That's not fair. Like, no, 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 no. You're not spending enough time with me, blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, that's
Right.
changing you. It's something that you fundamentally love. Right.
Mhm.
That's changing a person. Then there's if we look at attachment theory, for example, right?
Mhm.
Um, Barry, every time I try to talk to you, you shut down, like you run away, like I can't have these conversations with you because you're an avoidant, right? That's not necessarily how we would talk to each other, but I'm just saying
Right.
for
Both got to know,
example sake.
you both got to know the styles as well. So you
What's that?
both got to know the styles for one thing. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But like, okay, so now I'm anxious, right? I'm all anxious. Like, where did you go? Why? Where are you? Why? When are you coming back? Like, let me see your phone or whatever. Like the anxious person does. Like chase, 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 and the avoidant run, 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 run. Right? That
Yeah.
right there is based in wounding,
Right.
and might be triggering it in one another because one's avoidant, one's anxious. That is a typical combo there. Um, that is something that can be changed
Mhm.
should you be willing to do that and willing to look at that. And now that's what gets us into the realm of you work on you, I'm going to work on me. You
Mhm.
need to figure out why you are avoidant, and I will look at and figure out why I'm so anxiously attached. Like, what are my wounds? Why is that?
Right.
And oh my God, yeah, I show up like that with everybody. Okay,
Mhm.
that's my material. And yeah, you might be triggering that in me, but this is my material, right? And then that's then where the relationship can get into that rubber band, because if you're or me, one of us, isn't willing to look at it, no, it's not my fault. You're the one causing my anxiety. If only you would stop playing football all the time, if only you would stop, if only you
Right.
would stop, then I wouldn't be this way. Well, no, that's not true.
No, and that's the blame game, which doesn't work anyway. But
Mhm.
just to speak to that for a second, yes, the again, we want to be with somebody who's ideally growing, doing their own work. And if we want to go to talk to that person and start seeing all the things wrong with them, why are we even in that relationship with them in the first place? It's not our job to make them do things differently. Now, if you're in a deep relationship and you're committed to each other, you're both doing the growth work, and you see something your partner's got an issue with, maybe your partner's blind to it or isn't willing to work on it, it's not your job, because you're not the therapist, to work on your partner. It's
Mhm.
your responsibility to show your partner where maybe they can grow and say to them, like, I know a great therapist, or if you know somebody you want to go with, or there's a great book I think you should read because that book will change your life. It could be anything. That spectrum is available. But the thing about it in relationship is it's not about who controls who. That's the trap we fall into sometimes, because we think we're better than the other person. So we'll fix them. So we're in charge. So it makes us feel better. It's like, no, it's not a relationship. That's
Mhm.
that's messed up completely. So having respect for each other's journey and each other's place in their process, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stay with that person either, because you may realize that the path you're on Maybe it's accelerating very quickly because you're changing so much is happening because you're so ripe and ready to transform. But your partner just starting this journey is not going to grow anywhere near the pace you are. It may not mean that you'll stay together forever because you're just drifting apart in terms of the growth you're on, which is okay. The main thing is you both know that it's okay. Because the trap is we go, well, you shouldn't have left, or you should be catch up all these different shoulds we keep throwing each other, which is weaponizing our judgments, and that's not healthy at all.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, for sure. And the flip side of that too is if we are growing, to not stop our own growth because the other person's not catching up or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a balance in that too. And I think we organically just kind of know we get to a point like what you were saying before about some friends who just didn't, you just kind of grew apart, right? It happens in
Yeah.
relationships too. You just grow apart. So even if you're growing, even if you are still on that, both of you are on a growth trajectory, you could potentially be on a trajectory that goes this way.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's
Where
the
an
rubber band.
unattachment comes in.
But that's also the rubber bandy thing. It's like, because the thing is we have this tension in the relationship that makes it fun and exciting, but if the tension gets too much, it breaks the relationship apart. And that's the thing that we unfortunately need to sometimes come to peace with because it's like that happened. And if we go back and say, well, you should know this or I shouldn't have done that, again, when we start blaming each other, we are losing. When we take
Yeah.
responsibility, that's when we start winning.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Do you want to share like any personal stories here of your sort of like own dirt and divine where this is
Oh,
concerned? Because we've been in theory a lot today, Professor
sure.
Barry.
I definitely can share why I do this work in the first place, thanks to a
Mhm.
relationship breakup I had back in 2006. Um, I've been on this journey for a long time, personal growth development, spiritual psychology, all the things I talk about in my work. And even though I've done all this work, I wasn't perfect at relationships, just to be transparent. I still made mistakes. And when I was in this relationship, at the end, basically when we first got together, she was so attracted to me because I was in a lot of leadership roles where I volunteered in different places. And she looked at how I was in my life, which is not actually true. So when we got into a relationship, I basically advocated my role of being the leader, which I was in outside, but not in the relationship, because I was so caught up in the paradigm that my job was to please her and make her happy, which sounds great, but it wasn't functional because I wasn't leading, wasn't taking my place. And frankly, what at that time I was doing was missing out on what the third option was in my life. Because up to that point, just speak about masculinity for a moment, I had the understanding of maleness being either nice guy or bad boy. That was the two extremes I was aware of growing up because that's what I saw from my dad, what I saw from men around me, and that's what I saw was life. And so I ended up choosing to be more passive in my relationships, which again, not a good choice. In this relationship, which was the third one in a row where the same thing happened, I became the passenger more than the leader, and she was running the show. Now, one of the challenges was she was so in her masculine, get things done, make things happen, being a single parent, that she basically took that role so well. I didn't want to take her away from her. I was being so nice. So as the relationship proceeded, it got more and more dysfunctional because I was becoming lazier and lazier, and she was getting more and more responsible for everything. And at the end of it, she was in no uncertain terms, she read me the a riot act of what I was doing wrong, which was frankly was the biggest gift I could have gotten. I haven't seen her since that breakup. I actually know her ex-husband, and I said to him, if I ever meet her again, I would thank her because her um, I don't want to say a nice way of saying it. Her information she gave me was such a gift that changed my life. Because what I didn't know at that point was there was a third option besides nice guy and bad boy, which was what's truly called masculinity. And that's what I became a student of from 2007 to 2010, deep into that work and understanding also what femininity was as well. And it basically put me into this work. And the gift was so beautiful looking back. It was painful as all get out at the time because I knew she was right. I knew she'd call me out on my shit. I was so off base, but I didn't know what to do about it. Even though I'd done all this work and I'd done all this journey, I didn't know that I needed to take responsibility for how to be a man in the world the way that I needed to be. I'd been a man okay for that point, but I didn't know what masculinity was for me. And when I learned that, it changed everything for me. Everything I'd done to that point came into sharp focus, and I just knew that my life was a different journey from that point forward. So again, if I ever see her again, I would thank her. But it was a painful experience. And again, it was the third one in a row because the same thing happened in two previous relationships where I, of course, attracted women, who were in charge, and I wasn't running in charge in my life. So that was an interesting lesson.
That's beautiful. Can you define masculinity then for the purposes of this conversation and what you discovered about yourself? Because you're right. There's either the nice guy or the rebel guy, like the a-hole, like,
Mhm.
and those were my two types. Like that's what I
Yeah.
flip-flopped between too.
The models we were all
Until I
shown.
started to dig into my own femininity and realize what was healthy and unhealthy for me. So
Yeah.
what define masculinity for us?
Well, the way I would describe it, simply put, is the difference between masculinity and machoism, because there's a distinct difference, is the macho energy is very ego-driven, very selfish, and basically sort of neck up. Like, I'm running the show, my way or the highway, screw you, I'm going to get done what I need to get done. Which in emergencies can be useful, but otherwise not very functional. Masculinity, for me, the simplest way to define it, is a masculine man is a man who's an open heart and a straight spine, meaning that he has a great deal of care and compassion for those around him, but it's clearly about direction, purpose, and meaning, because that's what drives a man forward. And those two things alone are fundamental. There's more to it than that, but that is the cornerstone for me, what being a masculine man is. Like, what is my why? And the key thing is, my why is not my partner. It is what I do in my life. And also to have great care about those around me. Does that help?
Oh my God. Like you just spoke the magic words, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm a deeply feminine woman.
Mhm.
And I've done a lot of work on balancing out my own femininity and my own masculinity internally inside of me.
Yeah.
And how I prefer to be in this world is more feminine, right? Like we all can have a choice of how we want to like rule, right?
Yeah.
And I love being sensual and fluid and playful and sexy and fun and, like emotive and like I'm the waves of the ocean and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I have my own internal like direction and open heart and you know what I mean? I've got my own mountain, I've got my own masculinity inside of me. And then when it comes to a partner, that's what I'm looking for. And that's the thing that's always been missing is the open heart and straight spine. Those two things, they're so deeply intuitive. And
Mhm.
a woman can really feel when a man is not in that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and it's the thing that we can't quite put our finger on. It's like something's not right here. And we don't know what's not right, but it's that.
Yeah.
It's that your heart's closed. And we know when your heart is closed
Yeah.
and your spine isn't straight, meaning that you're too much of a people pleaser. And when you're too much of a people pleaser, we do not trust that. And
Right.
this is all kind of like unconscious until it becomes conscious. And then it's like, no, I'm not dating that. But like when it's unconscious, it's like, I don't trust you. And I don't know why, you know? And it's because this lack of the straight spine is where you know that that man is not going to be easily swayed. And that's what we need as the feminine to crash
Mhm.
up against this thing that's not going to move. We need you not to move.
Right.
We need you not to be a jerk in that. It would hence the open heart, right? Like you just described it so beautifully.
Thank you.
How
It's
is
what I learned. I mean, this was the game changer for me because I didn't know anything about this till that point, and I had some really good teachers, and I love sharing the message that I learned because it gave me clarity about what my why is, why I'm here,
it?
and what drives me. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And how would you describe healthy femininity then
Well,
from
like you
your
described, it's owning the magnificence of your of your joy, your light, your expression. The feminine, the way I use analogies for this is in some senses, it's like the feminine is like waves crashing, like you're saying, but it's also like a major river coming down the side of a hillside. It's powerful, unstoppable, and the masculine is the banks of the river because it creates structure. One of the masculine strengths is create structure and framing. But the thing to remember is that river can burst the river banks, meaning the feminine is more powerful than the masculine because femininity is the life force. Life itself is feminine. So that's why it's Mother Nature. So the masculine's role is in a lot of ways in service to the feminine, not to say be at the, to be embedded knee, but to honor and respect the feminine by being that strong, powerful, immovable, strong sense you can lean on, trust. So
Hmm.
for the feminine, it's great to be in the feminine joy and juiciness and sexiness and all that sort of stuff. But if there's no structure to be around it, it doesn't go anywhere. It's like you know a river going down the riverside that doesn't have riverbanks is a lake. There's nothing moving.
Mm.
So the feminine needs that, not needs as in can't function without, but a balancing for the feminine is the masculine because together it's the yin and the yang. It's the two opposites that come together beautifully. The feminine is movement and life energy and everything else. The masculine stillness and the void, the emptiness of death in a way. That we have such deep depth in who we are that nothing moves us in the sense that we can be there for somebody and hold space for them and they can trust that.
Yeah, I agree. And this is why it's important for us to work on balancing those two things within ourselves too, right? Because
Yes.
if you're single, whatever, like, and you're deeply feminine, say, for example, and you're flowing and you're whatever, like, yeah, you're right. Like, where is that structure? Where are those riverbanks, And
Right.
so it's really important to develop that within ourselves. And likewise for a man, you know, if you're too rigid and you're too, where's your flow? Where's your creativity? Like, where's your heart?
Yeah, just to underscore that, that's the thing I want to make sure as well we understand is that masculine and feminine energy are something we carry both within us all the time. And we generally reside at one point on the spectrum most of the time. So
Mhm.
most men tend towards the masculine end of the spectrum, most women tend towards the feminine end of the spectrum, but not always. And it doesn't matter about gender, doesn't matter about sexual preference. We carry both and we can move. And yes, like if a man is holding a baby, he's going to be his feminine more likely. He's going to be nurturing and caring and really kind, which is more of a feminine energetic. Whereas a woman, when she's driving A to B all the time, she'd be in a masculine because it's very clear, directional, getting things done. So yes, we do carry both energies, but it's also where we reside. And in relationship, the best energetic balance for a relationship is well, one part is more in the masculine, one part is more in the feminine. The more extreme they are, the more attraction there is, which is what makes a relationship rock.
Oh yeah, that polarity is hot.
Yeah.
It's really hot. Yeah. Okay, so we're starting to wrap up here, and the whole premise of this conversation was about like loving yourself, right? To be the most to cultivate a really healthy relationship
Yeah.
with others, right?
Mhm.
So what would be a couple of tools or things that someone can do starting now to start loving themselves? So we talked about awareness, right? Like looking and observe, like seeing the things, right? um what are the patterns that I've experienced in all my past relationships, and like, here we go again, kind of thing.
Right.
um,
Well, the second thing after that then is also having compassion for ourselves because the other part is when we become aware, well, we probably weren't aware before that. So now we're aware doesn't mean we start judging and blaming and being upset with ourselves because we didn't do it right. It's like, no, be kind with ourselves because part of that self-love is really having care and compassion for who we are as a person because we've had a journey. We're not perfect necessarily. We're not because none of us are. But also we didn't do things as bad as we could have done. That's the thing is that's the joy of growth. We're always we're doing the best we can and we're being excellent. We're doing everything we're doing. And so the thing for me is yes, awareness first because when you're aware, you can see what's going on. You can know what's to do with it. The second thing is then to be compassionate with ourselves because the first thing comes up after we realize we're doing things is like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's like well, you did what you did, which is the best you knew how. So be compassionate. And the third is what action do I want to take to be better at being myself? Whether it is working with a book, with a counselor, reading a book, taking a yoga class, finding a new relationship that can help you grow. It's like whatever you use as a vehicle for that. How can you focus on being better at being yourself?
mhm. Yeah. And I think that listen to yourself. Like, listen. what
Yeah.
what is the thing that comes up for you? Like, oh my God, I think I need therapy. Okay, well then go get therapy.
Mhm.
you know or, oh my God, I think I need to be single for a while. Okay, then go be single for a while. Like, oh my God, I think I need a yoga class. Okay, go to a yoga class. you know
Yeah.
like,
That
listen to that thing that your intuition, your inner, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, is telling you to do, and then go do that.
good choice. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Barry, we could like talk forever, I'm sure.
We can do this again. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I'll have you on again. We'll pick another topic because this it's so juicy, like relationships are they're so juicy.
Hmm.
And like we don't exist in a vacuum, and we do need other people. Well, I do, at least anyway. Like some people can be without other people. I don't know, I can't be. I have to have friendships, relationships. I have to talk to people every single day. Like I need that kind of connection on a daily basis. And even though I love being alone and I love my alone time and I love my silence, and you know what I mean, I don't have to fill every second. It's not filling a void. It's like just genuinely loving other people.
Yeah.
And so that for me has personally been like the biggest training ground, in terms of like lessons and growth and expansion and all of that. And what I try to do is be the best partner I can be for whoever it is that is in front of me, and like respecting that individual and really wanting to maintain a level of like relationship with that person, whether it's like you're all the way down in LA, and I may never actually physically see you ever again, but you're important to me. Well, we never know.
Hopefully. Right.
I'm just saying, like, it's possible. I've got friends that I've never, ever, ever met, and I've known them for 15 years. I've never met
Right.
them in person, you know what I mean? But they mean so much to me. That relationship means so much, And so I do think we have so much more to talk about here. And it's not just romantic relationships, it's all
Right.
relationships.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being here. So, how can people find you?
Well, all my social stuff is my name, basically. So my website is my name, which is barryselby.com. YouTube, LinkedIn, all the different places I'm under my name as well. My books on Amazon. You can find me all over the place.
Just Google you, right? Just
Yeah.
Google me. Just Google Barry and you'll find them.
Yeah. But on
Yeah.
my site, there's a lot of resource you can get as well. So definitely go visit my site because my book is there. I have a couple of quizzes out, which I know one mentions one of the offers. There's one on the front homepage, which right now is the one if you're ready for a relationship quiz. But the second one I just launched, which is the one I want to talk about, because we talked a lot about self-relationship, is that I've got a quiz that I created, which you have to go to directly, which is barryselby.com/self quiz. I think you put in the show notes. But basically, that is a self image and self relationship quiz that basically goes through 7 different areas to ask you questions that will give you clarity on how well you're doing in each of those areas. And at the end of it, you get a nice little PDF and some guidance and some next steps you can take. So I highly recommend you take that if you've been wondering about how you can improve your relationship with yourself, take the quiz.
Amazing. And then the PDF has got some tips and tools on what to
Yes,
do
indeed.
next.
And
Okay.
and some feedback on what you got.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate this growth journey that you and I have been on. Um, God, I guess since when did we meet? Was it 2015?
Come around there, yeah.
No, 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 no. Um,
Well, book it is after my book came out. So it's got to be after 2013. So it's got to be somewhere.
I think it was 2018 because that's when I was down in LA.
That must
Um,
have been the first time.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's when you and I first met. Yeah, yeah,
there you
yeah.
go.
Mojo at the Mojo event.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, fun. All right, everyone. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here.
I just want to say, by the way, thank you for having me on the show because I didn't get to thank you back. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh,
I appreciate
you're
it.
so welcome. You're so welcome. And thank you too, listener and watcher of The Dirt and the Divine. There will be all the show notes here and where you can find more and follow Barry. And please go to KrishaYoung.com as well if you're interested in my products and services and past episodes of The Dirt and the Divine as well. Thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate you. Thank you, Barry.
Thank
Um,
you.
here and sharing your wisdom. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.